Alright, Squid, just you and me. You beat me the first time, and the second time, and the next 14 times. But this time, I have a trick up my sleeve. I found a new sword. Oh, you're in for it now. Have at thee! Yeah! Yeah! You know, I'm starting to think this might be a hard game. Have you ever picked a game to play based off the feeling that you wanted to get by playing it? I pick lots of my games this way. Sometimes I feel a chill breeze come in and I get the urge to hunker down with a cozy game. Sometimes something in life will piss me off and I'll feel like I want to break something, and then I'll pick a game that lets me do that. Or sometimes I'm scared and I like being scared, so I'll pick a creepy game to enhance my spooky mood. I have no idea what part of my brain craves games like Kingsfield, but it shows up a lot. Something deep and ancient within me craves slow walking through a dark, ugly dungeon, creeping around corners, mentally mapping every hallway, smashing low poly skeletons. It feels weirdly natural. Like some caveman ancestor of mine needed to know how to do this. And it's within me as some sort of like vestigial instinct. So if life is feeling big and messy and you just want to disappear into a quiet, dangerous maze for a while, Kingsfield on the PS1 might be your thing. This is the game that we played this month in the Dusty Game Society, and we have thoughts on it. I'll tell you more about the DGS at the end of the video. But now, we need to talk about Kingsfield. This game is brutal, weird, confusing, creepy, but also kinda special. In a brutal, weird, confusing, creepy kind of way. You're probably familiar with FromSoft. They made Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Elden Ring, you know those guys. Their games all have the same vibe. It's hard to put your finger on, but all FromSoft games feel like FromSoft games. It's a mixture of the difficulty, the progression, and the mood and atmosphere. FromSoft started their journey as developers making Kingsfield on the PS1, but the true first Kingsfield was released only in Japan. The first Kingsfield in North America, which is the one that the Dusty Game Society played this month, was actually called Kingsfield 2 in Japan. And then the subsequent games in both regions had mismatched numbers on their names. Apparently they did the names this way to avoid confusion. Yeah, good job, guys. And playing it now, one of the things that makes Kingsfield interesting is that it's an early FromSoft game. Seeing where they started, you can feel the FromSoft DNA here, even super early in their journey. One of the first clues that this is a FromSoft game is the story. It's basically just a mysterious breadcrumb trail that you find leading you deeper as you get lost in the world. With scattered bits of lore, weird NPC ramblings, nothing fully explained. My understanding of the story is, I'm a prince and my boat was attacked by sea monsters, so I wash up on a spooky island. I learn I gotta go get a sword, something dragon. The world does a lot of environmental storytelling. You got creepy bridges, lava rivers, sad little villages, long stone hallways that feel like they go on forever. It's low poly and basic, but still, I felt like I was in these places, seeing this stuff. Immersion was achieved. And the NPCs, oh man, just a bunch of sad, confused weirdos with no eyes, mumbling out walls. You talk to them and they say something cryptic, and then if you keep talking, they slowly spiral into nonsense. Which is also how I feel when I talk to most people in real life. The first thing that hits you in Kingsfield before anything else is the terrible frame rate. This game doesn't look remotely good, but somehow it pushes the PS1 hardware to its knees. I played this on my iNeo Pocket S Mini, specifically because this is the most powerful 4x3 handheld that there is, and it also has the best resolution option so that it works perfectly when I dock it to my Commodore 1702 monitor. I can play this on the handheld, and then I can slap it down on the dock and then continue on the CRT with a controller. The retro vibes are off the frickin' charts over here. But since I was playing via emulation, I very quickly started tinkering, and I figured out that if you increase the CPU clock speed on the PS1, you can get a way better frame rate. I bumped it up to 200%, and that was a huge help. It was never perfect, but it was worlds better. Definitely do this if you're playing via emulation. Once you get past the frame rate, the game itself is still pretty clunky. Your sword arm flails out and swipes across the screen like it's moving through pudding. The controls are stiff and awkward, and this was before they figured out how to do good FPS controls. So I highly recommend you spend some time rebinding the controls to feel more modern. I put the looking around on the right stick and the moving around on the left stick, you know, modern first-person shooter style, and that did help a lot. The actual combat in the game is about as basic as you can get with an FPS. You'll wander up to the bad guys and smack them in the face with your weapon. Your best strategy with pretty much any enemy is to just circle strafe around them. Keep on their side or their back and they can't hit you, so you can just wail away at them. The enemies of this world are pretty basic fantasy bad guys, but slightly weird versions. Like you have these crab squid things and you have to kill their shell first, which disappears, leaving them flopping around but still slapping you. There are these ghosts that get up in your face and then they make you move slow or make your vision all dark, just basically there to annoy you. These plants aren't that dangerous, but they can poison you. The most obnoxious bad guys are anything that shoots projectiles and the things that can knock you off platforms. But generally, if you keep hunting for weapons and armor and you spend most of your money on healing items and gear, you should find most of the challenges pretty easy. Speaking of finding loot, you'll want to be on the lookout for hidden doors and chests and stuff. There's a lot of secrets in the game. However, I found that most of the time it was usually pretty obvious where they were. You can usually just look around an area and be like, oh yeah, there's probably a secret door over there. Like you'll open up a door to a room with nothing in it. Obviously, they wouldn't put a room with nothing. And then you poke the walls and yeah, there it is, the secret door. However, that also made me want to walk around poking every frickin' wall all the time, just in case I missed something. There's magic in the game too. You'll find these crystals that you eat to give you new spells. However, magic is a finite resource. You need items to refill your mana, so you won't be using it much. It's mostly ignorable, to be honest. The game's progression is based on finding stuff. There are doors you can't open without the right keys, NPCs that won't give you what you need until you find their statue or rescue their kid or whatever. And then there's these doors that are opened with a special type of key called a rhombus key. But you don't have a ton of them at the start, and until you get a whole bunch of them, you won't have enough to get to some areas through a series of locked doors. And in the shrines, or whatever you call it, where you save your game, there are these pedestals that can take a special type of key. And you can find the corresponding gate item that will let you teleport there. So you can use that mechanic to get back to areas that you've been as a shortcut. But it's also required because you can get into places in this game where you are literally stuck with no way out. So you have to have a key and gate escape plan active at all times. This is the kind of game you can get through pretty quickly with a walkthrough, I think. However, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to experience this as if I actually got this game and played it back in the day with nothing more than the manual and the game itself. One thing I will suggest though, for everyone, is find the maps as soon as you can. The Pirates map and the Miners map. I only stumbled upon them about halfway through the month, and I really wish I had them from the start. You can get them really early, so if you look up any one thing, look that up. Graphics wise, it's pretty darn basic. The textures are going for a realistic feel, but they're too low res and they repeat too often to be successful at that, so it just kind of looks ugly and muddy. The world is super low poly, mostly full of just square corridors, and the enemies are ugly. There's very little style to anything. It's all very basic, but after you play for a bit, you stop seeing the low poly models and the low res textures and start to feel like you're actually in this place, seeing things for what they're intended to be rather than what they actually are. However, the retro vibes are off the frickin' chart here. There's something about the ugly old look to the game that really felt great. Like I've been transported back in time to the 90s and I have nothing better to do than crawl through a retro dungeon on a Friday night. I loved playing this on my handheld, but especially on my CRT. It feels right playing this game on an old CRT, a true gateway to another world in proper Dusty style. The sound is probably the worst part of the game, in my opinion. The music is terrible. It doesn't set the right mood and it repeats too quickly, and it just drove me nuts. I got to the point where I just put on my own music. That fixes a lot of the awkward mood of this game with that one change. The sound effects are also just as bad. Swords and monsters and arrows all sound just not what you'd expect them to sound like, but that's fine. It didn't bother me when I had my own music playing, so whatever. At first, I was sucked in by the novelty of experiencing the FromSoft DNA in this very early crude form, by which I mean dying. I did a lot of dying because I suck. But then as I pushed through the rough first hours and the game opened up to me, I felt lost and confused, but also excited at the possibilities, because I was getting it, slowly but surely. And as I understood it more, as I got a feel for the exploration and the items and found more keys and weapons and got deeper and deeper into the maze-like world, I weirdly started feeling like this was my home now. I played this every day and I got sucked right in. This is one of my favorite games that we've played with the Dusty Game Society, and it's hard to put my finger on exactly why. It's not because the game is incredible. It's good, but it's still old and dated and very imperfect. But I think it was just what I needed right now, if that makes sense. Yes, it does. Sometimes I need a dark, sad, weird land to spend time in, as a palate cleanser from real life. Real life has moms that ground me when I don't wash my dishes, bank tellers who ask me to stop doodling on the countertops with their complimentary pens, strangers who look at me weird when I sneeze but I don't have a tissue so I wipe my booger hand on my sock, bills and emails and car problems and back problems and new gray hairs and expensive ear medicine and who knows what else is right around the corner. Having a world to escape to like Kingsfield that sucks me in, with rules that I can understand and problems that I can actually conquer. It's like the antidote to real life that only games can give you. Kingsfield was the right game at the right time, but I also feel like it also would have been the right game at any time. So maybe the time is right for you to give this one a go. But that's just one dweeb's opinion, and the Dusty Game Society isn't a one dweeb show, and we had the whole frickin' Dusty Game Society on double duty with this one to crack it wide open. Kingsfield turned out to be a game where half of the DGS looked at it like it was a cursed medieval punishment device, and the other half quickly got Stockholm Syndrome and started calling it brilliant. It was like watching a room full of people get smacked in the face by a squid monster, and then write haikus about it, which also literally happened. Reading through all the DGS member reviews, there was some big areas of consensus. Everyone agreed that the controls are clunky, the visuals are crunchy, the frame rate can get a little terrible, and the game explains almost nothing. Quite a few people bounced off it because of the punishing deaths and the confusing layout and the slow combat, which is totally fair. This game welcomes you like a homeless guy welcomes you into the fort that he built behind the grocery store, with a knife. But another thing that came up a lot, which warms my dweeby heart, because this is how it was for me, a lot of the Dusty Dweebs found that once the game clicked, it really clicked. Like the focus on exploration. Lots of dweebs liked all the hidden doors and the feeling of slowly learning the map, the satisfaction of getting stronger, and that old school sense of being dropped into a hostile world and just having to figure it all out, like we do in real life, except with fireballs and skeletons instead of credit ratings and my neighbor who stole my recycle bin. And I can prove it. Modern emulation was also talked about a good bit, as it tends to be around these parts. We had lots of talk of save states, remapped controls, maps, cheats, overclocking. People were absolutely putting this ancient beast on life support, and that honestly made me proud. These guys have obviously watched a TechDweeb video or two. Or 588. Holy crap, have I really made 588 freaking videos? Jeez. But more than anything, this felt like a month where the Dusty Game Society really showed up. All month long, tips were shared, maps were used, people helped each other push through, and even the folks who quit or stalled out still seemed glad they gave it a shot. Kingsfield was messy, moody, punishing, fascinating, and extremely Dusty Game Society-ish. There were so many great reviews that came in this month, and I'm sorry I don't have time in this video to get to all of them, but I wanted to highlight a few that stood out. Rinshi Fox is new to the DGS. Welcome! This game hit them with a wave of nostalgia thanks to the chunky early 3D visuals, but that same first-person perspective also hit them with a motion sickness curse. They wanted to keep exploring, but their body politely declined. The DNG. Oh man, this is so freaking cool. They made a whole magazine-style mock-up for their review. I mean, like, look at this. Look at it! An actual magazine-style spread for the game. I'm like in awe at how cool this is. I read the whole thing and it is so good. I'll link to this in the thingy below. You kind of need to go take a look at that when you're done watching this. Kirax is new. Welcome to the Dusty Game Society. Their time with Kingsfield turned into a constant battle with getting lost in near-identical environments, missing critical items, and realizing way too late that half the game is hidden behind random walls. Mapping things out feels less optional and more like a survival skill. Replay pushed through the rough opening and found a game that opens up in a big way once you understand it. The loop of exploration, upgrades, and slowly mastering the world really clicked. Arrowshot also dropped a first Dusty Game Society review and came in hot with some real enthusiasm. They connected hard with the clunky style, adapted to the controls faster than most of us exhausted skeletons, and even played both the Japanese original and the US release. Mama Coco started out hating the game but then transformed it through remapped controls, save states, and cheats into something they could actually enjoy. Their review was a great reminder that sometimes the best way to appreciate an old game is to kinda bully it into behaving. They also wrote a whole review on their website, including a lovely little fanfic story that I thought was super well done and creative. I'll link to that in the thingy below as well. Nellinez gave a super insightful deep dive into the series. He found that once you get past the brutal start, the difficulty levels out and becomes much more manageable. The real strength here was the interconnected world design, even if the story and the combat didn't quite keep up. That's Cowl gave a really solid first DGS review. They talked about how frustrating and disorienting the game could be, but also how immersive and rewarding it became once they settled into its weird rhythm. UC Booties also jumped in for their first month. They spent most of that time playing the wrong Kingsfield, which is nothing more than a testament to how confusing they made the names, especially considering they did it to avoid confusion. So UC Booties played Kingsfield 3. They enjoyed the atmosphere and the exploration, although the combat didn't fully win them over. Brend the Cow ran into a different kind of barrier. With limited playtime, the game never quite had the space it needed to hook him, even though the exploration and the atmosphere were clearly doing something right. Timing and real life, as it turns out, is a boss fight of its own. Pure Joysticks recognized all the familiar FromSoft ingredients, but those same elements just didn't land for them. Even so, they still respected the ambition, still finished it, and gave a lot of love to the DGS community for helping them get there. Rad Hatter joined after binging old DGS videos. Love to hear it. They have a great review here. I really like their perspective on blind exploration, hand-drawn notes, and the challenges of learning the game on its own terms. They said it's a tough game to recommend broadly, but a rewarding one if you're willing to meet it on its terms. The Shibushi went in nervous because of FromSoft's reputation and then suddenly realized that they'd stayed up way too late fighting skeletons and poking blobs. The combat and rhythm eventually clicked, and while the game can feel rough and archaic, it's still weirdly absorbing once you settle into it. And finally, as we've come to expect, Strahd von Zarovich went all out this month. He played all 3 Kingsfield games and wrote a piece of straight-up literature about his experience. With your permission, my lord, I'll end this session with your eloquent words. I did not come to the Kingsfield games looking for comfort. I came to them the way I approach old ruins, old bloodlines, and rumors of buried power, with caution, curiosity, and a private hope that they might prove severe enough to matter. They did. These games are archaic in the proper sense. They do not rush to please you. They do not smooth themselves for convenience. They demand patience, spacing, memory, discipline, and the willingness to look foolish for a while before you begin to understand how the land thinks. And when it comes to looking foolish, oh man, that's like my main skill. No wonder I love this game. The Dusty Game Society is a perk that I offer to my patrons, those cool dweebs and lady dweebs that support my channel. It is literally because of you that I can do this for a living. YouTube is weird right now. I don't know if it's AI content or just the changing tides in social media, but it is harder now to make it work as a job than ever. But my patrons and my channel members are who you can thank, that I can do this every day. This thing that I'm doing here, whatever it is. So if you want to support my channel and help me make better videos and also join in with the Dusty Game Society, there's a link in the thingy below. But with all that aside, I hope you give Kingsfield a try. Thanks for watching the video. From all of us at the DGS, stay dusty, my friends.